Because I think part of the democratic backsliding now is voter fatigue by design. Of course, they can do a judicial capture, they can do institutional erosion as we spoke about, but I feel like all around the world, voter fatigue by design is something that the autocrats are doing. Because that's a last battleground that they could not conquer as autocrats.
Right. 这一集的来宾是差一点当上泰国总理的 Pita。他在2023年赢得大选，但是隔年就被宣判10年不能参政。我们一起谈一谈，在艰难的政治环境中，要怎么制造改变，重塑对新政治的想象。Pita 提到，威权体制会刻意让政治更极端、更对立，让民众厌烦政治，放弃参与。那么要怎么改变政治的生态，让人民信任政治呢？ Pita 的答案是坚持用平均15美元的小额捐款，对抗金权政治，并且用同理心去听懂人民的无力感，唤醒他们对于政治改革的渴望。接下来是我跟 Pita 的谈话。Pita, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Let's jump straight in. We've got a book here that is soon to be published in Chinese, The Almost Prime Minister.
Yes, here in Taiwan. It's going to be a first international version that's not in Thai, even before English. So I got to express my gratitude to the Taiwanese agency and publisher, and also the people who are interested in Thai politics.
Absolutely. And thank you for signing it for me.
Yes, I have to, we have to meet each other again, and I have to swap the Taiwanese version because I assume you cannot read Thai at the moment.
But I'm going to keep this version.
Of course. Thank you so much.
You've been banned from politics for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you're 1 year into your 10-year ban.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us what specifically you're allowed to do during these 10 years, or for the remaining 9 years, and what you can't do for folks who aren't as familiar with Thai politics or Thai legal system?
So just to give a little bit of context to your audience, so we won the election in 2023, and then lawsuits piled up, and then the penalty that the Constitutional Court of Thailand put upon me was to dissolve my party, Move Forward Party, and ban the executive leadership, which I was the party leader, for 10 years. And it's been a year. Now we're fast forward to 2025, so it's in its second year. The question asked me what I can do and what I cannot do. Simple is that I cannot run for office, I cannot sit in parliament, and I can no longer lead a political party. So my political rights were stripped away during this 10 years. But I can still communicate, I can still write, I can still campaign, as a civil duty. So pretty much cannot do politics, but they cannot stop me from doing public service and being a good citizen in a democracy like Thailand.
What did you do that ran afoul of the constitutional courts, especially related to the monarchy?
It was an attempted amendment of a criminal code. So we were trying to find the balance between the proportionality of law between protection of the head of the state and the freedom of speech. And because of that, they accuse us for overthrowing the kingdom and treason. So because of that, they disbanded the party that got 40% of the votes and disbanded the election winner. So hence the thing. But to be clear, I mean, for the audience who are not familiar with Thai politics, if you look back in the past 20 years, we are probably the 35th party that got disbanded. I'm probably politician number 252 or something like that. It's quite a systemized way of doing it. And before that 20 years that I'm referring to, if you go back for 80 years, which is approximately how long Thailand has been a democracy, a constitutional monarchy from absolute monarchy, 13 military coups.
Right.
So 80 years, 13 military coups. 20 years, maybe 30-something political parties get dissolved. So, it's up to the audience to do some research and think about it themselves, whether it's personalized as, that's something that I did or we did, or it's more of a broader issue that is a way to counter majoritarianism, as a systemized way.
Can you talk us through your decision on going forward with the legislative proposal What were your thought processes?
So if I rephrase you, it's like, if I know the vicious cycle, why would I run into the wall? And that's pretty much your question.
What were you thinking about? Yeah, talk us through your thought process.
Ran for office knowing of the vicious cycle, or how politics would be, because silence breeds status quo. And if they were to take away my seats, it's better than taking away my voice. I believe that Thailand can and I can, and I want to give it a go, even knowing, you know, the danger of politics, if you will. But they can take away my seats, but they cannot take away my ideas. They can take away my leadership, but they cannot take away, you know, the breadcrumbs that I have put towards the dent in the universe that I had left with Thai politics and beyond Asia, arguably. So that's why I decided to try it out, knowing if there's a scenario analysis of these, you know, there's a probability of me sitting with you as a former politician, but, you know, I don't want to be silent. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Last question on this topic. That's, I think, something that we'll all be very, very interested in hearing. In a system where politicians could be banned 10 years at a time, how do you envision change happening in Thailand?
You have to win more. You have to win bigger and deeper. So both breadth and depth, to the certain extent that your political weight is an undisputed leader of Thai politics. And that's not just winning elections, but also winning minds and hearts, dominating ideas, to the certain extent that, you know, a ban, like I said, you can ban a leader, but you cannot ban an idea. So that kind of thing is what's required in order for you to overthrow this sustainably, in the sense that, you know, people will keep coming into politics and fresh blood keep coming in. A lot of times that I spent when I was a politician was that I spent time having a dialogue with someone who deemed as my opponent, maybe a younger version. So it's not exactly all the elites, but, you know, the second generation of all the monopolies, or, you know, the mid-rank military, or the independent organizations and the courts in our age, so that they can see me eye to eye, and they can test me, they can roast me, they can ask me questions, so they can see that I'm not what is being portrayed of me on the news. And eventually it will take some time. It's not going to be, you know, one election cycle or two election cycles.
Yeah.
But when the time comes, I already dominated the ideas and stripped away all the criticism, all the questioning that they had for me. So winning deep and winning wide, to the extent that you're an undisputed leader. I think that's how you do it. Sustainably in the parliament.
Yeah. And so it means for the next election, it may not be the Move Forward party. It can't be, but it's going to be the next party that comes around. Is that what it means? Continuing to compete in every election?
To be honest, the way we, you know, other founders and myself, when we were framing our political trajectory, we were thinking of 4 election cycles. So we were not very short-sighted in the sense that you got to get most member of parliaments in one election cycle, to the extent that you'll bend your morality and start buying votes and trying to go through shortcuts. But we were having our KPIs or objective 4 election cycles, maybe 16 years. That's how long it takes to, you know, move this inertia, or to reverse what has been done to the country, or to make sure that the country realizes its potential. So that's why we were a very long-term thinker. We think in terms of generations. We think in terms of decades and not like election cycle. So that's why we only halfway, and we already achieved what we are supposed to achieve in 4 election cycles. Yes, we were blocked, but we won, and nobody can take away that victory. We won, we formed, and we got blocked. So, you know, with only 2 election cycles, as a rookie prime ministerial candidate, as a rookie leader, with all the odds stacked against us, like how your second question was asking me. So I think time is on our side, but you got to know that we have the time, but they have everything else. So you got to strategize. You got to have your cadence. You got to have your rhythm on how you want to achieve this.
Well, you have to stay organized, stay funded, and still make change even if some of your legal rights have been stripped.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And a lot of leadership management, a lot of succession planning.
Yeah.
Like one of the time-consuming tasks that I was willing to do is succession planning. We don't want the movement to be personalized and just with the former leader or myself or the current leader. But, you always have that next 10 or next 20 in mind all the time. Yep. Because, politics is a marathon and not a sprint. And it's pretty energy draining as well, as you'll probably know. So we want to be able to pass on the idea regardless of who the actor is, kind of. So succession planning was something that you really have to do.
Earlier, I asked you, what is your family? What does your kid think daddy does for a living? And you said, she says, she knows you as an educator.
Now.
At Harvard Kennedy School, which is where you're at now.
Yes, I'm a senior fellow.
Talk us through the work that you're doing there, especially your work on encouraging voter turnout and why that's a focus.
Sure. I'm there to share and to learn because I'm being forced to sit down, as the audience will probably know, but I can still coach. And now I'm trying to turn reality into the textbook for the next gen leaders of ASEAN or Asia or all around the world.
What questions do they ask you?
Depending on the region, but they'll ask me like how much does it cost to start a political party? Indonesia, India, Philippines. I think that's a quick sanity check of how sometimes the current political setup or the political parties might not reflect Gen Z, might not reflect the youth at the moment. And the popular questions is how much would it cost for me to run? How much would it cost to start my own political party and stuff? That was quite a popular question.
Can you talk us through how you help them contextualize some of these ideas, or maybe how you did it?
So I asked them, why you're running for public office? What party are you trying to do? And why now? And that's how I shaped their political identity, by asking them just a couple of questions that I would ask my own candidate. So why politics? And why this party? And why now and not before or the next election when you are more ready financially or mentally or whatever? And then they will form a campaign playbook with me. Start with the why, and you got to be able to articulate your why that you wanted to do this, and the kind of risks that you have to go through it. But how I did it is I call it precision politics, and I call it 4 C's. First is candidate, second is competitor, third is constituencies, and fourth is count. So with these things, if you look back in your district that you ran, a strong candidate, weak competitor, young constituencies, the count kept increasing in the past 4 or 5 election cycles, then I would be able to precisely segment in the districts into 3 colors: green, yellow, and red. If it's red is too conservative, I don't show up. If it's green, I show up 1 time and deliver my message. If it's yellow, it's swing states. Yeah, it's swing districts. I show up 3 times in order to convince them. And with that, in Thailand, there's 400 districts as a political canvas. When I apply those 4 C's, candidate, competitor, constituency, and count, I got 160 as my focus, prioritized political canvas.
You're yellow.
Green and yellow, yeah. And I got 151 out of that, with a very lean campaign management, because the candidate is already strong. It's a low-hanging fruit. The candidate is strong than average. The competitor, probably an incumbent in their 70s who's been around for 4 or 5 election cycles but never deliver results. The constituency relatively young, young maybe in their 40s and things like that, open to new ideas. And look at the past 3 or 4 election cycles, the voting turnout is like this. So because of that, instead of being all over the place, I just decided to pour my water on this tree so that it keeps going and going. So that's what I meant by precision politics. And I think that applies both macro. So if you are running if you are managing DPP at the higher level, then you think about this as well. Or even if you're managing your own district, when you do your route management, where you walk on, where you try to you have to be able to tell whether this narrow path or that narrow path that I prioritize my time on.
That's right. That's right. Voter turnout. You've talked about achieving 70% plus as a path to victory.
Yeah.
Can you talk through why that is and what that tells you about your demographic, about your voter base?
I think it's 70% is for mathematical equation in politics as well, but it's also for legitimacy. I mean, if it's a highly participative election, then you know, legitimacy of winning is there. But if people don't show up to vote, the probability of manipulating results, especially in Thailand or Southeast Asia, you could just buy someone to show up for you and vote. You know, the under the table politics is there. And if the voting turnout is large, that means here comes everybody. If they were to do it, they have to do it in a high investment. So it's for them, for these transactional politicians, it's almost like return on investment. If they have to invest a lot, then they might just withdraw and don't do what they want to spend money on buying votes. So maybe $20 per vote and things like that. If they have to get a large amount, then they will multiply it. So that's how you
increase the cost of doing
increase the cost of doing the business. But if, you know, because in order for you to win, you have to have the majority of the voting turnout. If it's 10 people and 8, you have to buy 5, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But if it's only 6, you have only to buy 4.
That's right.
So that's the mathematic way of thinking and knowing your enemy, that this is the way they think. And that's how they invest as a politician. So those are the things. It's like, because I think part of the democratic backsliding now is voter fatigue by design. Of course, they can do a judicial capture. They can do institutional erosion, as we spoke about. But I feel like all around the world, voter fatigue by design is something that the autocrats are doing. Because that's a last battleground that they could not conquer as autocrats. Competitive autocracy, they cannot compete with people who are sincere with the people, who have linkages with the people. But if they succeed in doing voter fatigue by design, because politics is so dramatized, it's so boring, and I feel like, oh, I'll just focus on my e-sport or my boy love or my any other things that they're interested about, and they just, because the cost of going to election for majority of people, whether in Taiwan or Thailand, is high. And if the benefit of going to election is lower, that means the voting turnout will low. And, you know, these people are really smart. Sometimes if you pay $20 for them to vote for them, that's one cost. But you can just pay $5 and call it as a stay-at-home fee. I give you money, but you just don't show up. So that's also another way that these autocrats are getting smarter and smarter. And they're designing political inertia and designing voter fatigue so that people feel like it's so dramatized, it's so polarized. And, you know, what I see on TikTok and Facebook is just so overwhelming for me. I just don't show up. I'll just take care of my beef noodle soup and make sure I make my ends meet day per day rather than going to the polls.
Speaking of design or payments, Australian system, which, as you know, has a penalty or administrative costs for not voting, and they're able to hit, I think, 90% consistently election to election. But polarization and fatigue in politics, or if I may, distrust in the political process, that's certainly a problem.
Yeah, that's a global phenomenon.
Is that, and that's an issue in Thailand as well. Sounds like
trust is a big issue.
Yeah.
Public trust, transparency, and tangible results. I think that's the 3 T's that are missing in governance and in politics. And if you are a Democrat and you're trying to innovate or renovate democracy, you got to find some sort of technology or some sort of ideas, political culture that trust is returned, transparency is returned, and tangible results is returned. Because the autocrats are actually focusing on this. How do I make sure that it's as polarized and there's still public trust, because it's conquer and divide, it's so fragmented, it's so segmented.
Yeah.
And then there's no tangible results. That's why you want to find a scapegoat. It could be minorities. It could be immigrants, but maybe it's actually the billionaires that are the minority in each of the regions. But you just feel like, okay, maybe if I go against the immigrants, if I go towards the minorities, it's a weaker opponent. So that's why I want to attack on these people, because I feel like there's no tangible results. The housing crisis in Germany and Australia and probably here, you know, it's much easier to blame it on the Thai migrant workers or something like that, rather than, you know, maybe the billionaires that hoard all the supply of all the real estate in a particular society or whatever.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we really have to focus about, on how to bring public trust back, how to bring transparency back, how to deliver tangible results.
Campaign financing you touched on earlier, and you talked about the entry barriers to politics. You also talked about your political operation being funded by donations of $15 roughly. Talk us through what that and something you said just now that was I think that's probably music to the ears of a lot of aspiring politicians, aspiring public servants, is how do you get involved in politics in this system, in this environment, without breaking the bank, without sacrificing your bank account or your values, as we said elsewhere. So talk us through that grassroots operation. Was it by choice? Was it by necessity? And how you advise the other, the future generations from adopting?
By choice. So even if we raise a lot of money, we'll still keep the campaign lean. And by precision politics, using data, using information, maybe the old school politicians don't know how to do what we do. They don't do social listening. They don't poll things. So we use data-driven campaign. So it's very lean. We know exactly where to appear. We know exactly what kind of strategic endorsement we need, and the kind of the sentiment of the public. So we can keep it lean. So every appearance that we make, we have a pre-event communication, during event communication, post-event communication. So we monetize. We pretty much like squeeze everything out of all our appearance. So the cost of doing it versus the return that you get from it from appearing is much higher than any other political parties. So it's by choice, and we have to start off by knowing that if you use money for politics, when you stop the money from flowing, that everything stops. No one's going to work because there's no money. But if you explain early on a managed expectation, where we're going to do this, and you're only going to get this for your district, very minuscule amount.
You're talking about the candidates.
About the candidates. So their expectation is being managed, and they would walk from 5 a.m. until like 10 p.m. until the law allows. And, you know, we help them manage instead. We help them communicate instead. We help them with the graphic designs. So it's not about giving them a lot of money so that they use that as a shortcut in doing something else. In order to raise $15, but obviously a large multiply.
Is that going to the party or is going to individual candidates?
To the party, The message was that so that you can trust me, so that I have my political autonomy in what I do, in what I say, in what I vote. But if I don't come to you for $15, then I'll probably have to sustain my campaign, and I have a dilemma of choosing whether I start getting money from the energy companies, and when I want to get rid of coal and start promoting renewable energies, I'll probably have to pick up the phone call and vote against my conscience.
So you go out and ask for that.
So I tell them, so that I have autonomy, so that you can trust me, that I will speak my mind and vote my mind. And like I tell my fellow party members that, you know, if you run for office but you have to report someone, it's brutal. I mean, you can't really sleep at night, but now you can sleep, safe and sound, because you're doing exactly what you were thinking inside. It's a much better environment for you to be a politician.
How do you tell your Thai voter, your Thai neighbor, that politics is still the answer, right? Because you are fighting against so many forces, as you talked about, right? There's industries that are transforming, technology that is going to really severely disrupt what life looks like. And on top of it, you have the institutional pressures that are actively working to keep people away from politics. But certainly you believe that public policy is the most important path. So how do you communicate that to your fellow citizen?
It's very convenient for you to focus on the pessimism and saying the things that I say to my fellow countrymen. But to show optimism and hope and the potential that we had done hard things before as a nation, and now that we have the asset, we have our strength, we have our weakness, but there's also opportunities and threats that are coming up from the external pressure. So strategy is, how do we leverage our strength to maximize our opportunities and minimize the threats that are coming against us in terms of food security, in terms of being an agricultural-driven country, in terms of the semiconductor industry that we're having, in terms of our culture that the country possesses. So you have to really be optimistic yourself and show them the potential of what we can achieve together, the change we can believe in, the change that is tangible, and show them, both the vision, both the implementation. This is my first 100-day agenda. If I win the election, this is the first 100 days that I can do with my executive power without increasing any national budget. So that's why when I say that, it's like, okay, this guy is ready. This guy knows what he's talking about. And it's something that it's a kind of future that I want to co-create, rather than focusing on the pessimism of, the aging society, the suicidal rate and all those things. Those things are true. But if you keep saying something like that, people will just shy away from politics. And I feel like at this time, regardless of where you are in the world, you have to really engage the youth. What happened in America, for example, it does not guarantee automatically, or even in Japan or any other elections during the super cycle election last year. Last year, India, South Africa, Indonesia, and all the people went to vote. And you feel like people, even if they're a Gen Z or if they're first-time voter, they can turn right. They can turn into conservatism rather than progress. Or they might just don't show up to vote as well. So those are the things that I feel like it's a deciding factor. So I think it fits perfectly for me to be an educator now, talking to people 20 years younger than me, and really to empathize before mobilizing youth. Because when you go around the world, in America and Europe and in other places, they will say, how do you mobilize the youth? What's the youth mobilization strategy? There's an M before the mobilize, which is the empathy. If you don't really understand what they are going through or what they think, you cannot mobilize them. So I feel like this is the deciding factor of, if they bring energy and their creative juice to the country and to the political scene, I feel like it will revive the entire thing. The metaphor is that, regardless of how screwed up your body is, if you get a fresh blood injected into the body all the time, without going through any structural procedure or surgery, you'll feel much better. So I feel like that's the kind of thing that, you just don't speak to the people, but you also show the people and encourage these younger generation with the creative juice to politics, and eventually it will revive the entire energy of the country. Because, they have future ahead of them, so they should care more than us.
Thanks, Pita. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
No, thanks for being here.